Hello. So following on from the first video that I did called The Theological Turn, I wanted to kind of further discuss, I guess, the transition into mystical or spiritual or theological thinking, because I don't know if we talk about it enough. Maybe this gets talked about a lot, but to my in my personal experience, people are always very quick to get you into a religious system, and I just think that increasingly in modern society, modernist society, and postmodern society, um, we just don't have the groundwork to to think spiritually and theologically, and it's a long and slow and painful process to kind of try and come to these realizations on your own. There's plenty of ways you can get into it academic. You can get into this stuff in an academic way and study spirituality and mysticism and religion, or you can get into it in a religious way right off the bat, where people, will tell you, "I have good news. There's a God, and we can tell you exactly, the ways to believe, and exact, and in other words, there's no journey to there's no journey to the doorstep, or at least that journey to the doorstep isn't understood or isn't discussed. And so for me, I think it's just because my journey to the doorstep has been so damn long. Like, it's just been so fucking long to get to the doorstep of actually thinking about believing in God. And it's been so long that I feel like it's actually just kind of interesting now. Um, and so I'll just tell a little bit more biographical stuff. I already mentioned that I was in Christian culture, Christian religion deeply, my whole life. And for me and for my personality type, I feel like being so steeped in it actually prevented me from ever experiencing this pre mystical, early mystical dawning of the day, kind of like, sunrise, that I feel that I might be experiencing now, because I just thought, I was told exactly what all this was supposed to look like. And so you're told that as a kid, you don't think about what it looks like to you. And actually, it's framed to you as being an objective thing. God is an objective reality. And, and the truth of this religion is objective. Even just this week, I saw somewhere somebody saying Christianity is true. And I thought, that's really weird. It's a really weird way to phrase that. It's like saying the space shuttle is true or something. Like what does it mean to say something that is not only, a fairly complex and interlinking, hyperlinked system of thought and narrative and mythology, you know, but then also with layers and layers and centuries of cultural associations, and then you're going to say it's true. Well, so in video one, I discussed the theological turn, and I guess I'm still discussing that in this video, but I'm going to call it the intellectual turn, because you really can get going into faith or religion on an intellectual level. And I think previous generations, and when we get back to the Bible times, they had an advantage over us in that the expectations of their internal lives were not that they were going to be independent heroes of thought. You were never going to be an independent hero of thought. You were going to be part of a culture, part of a society, and of course there were gods. Of course there was a god or gods also that were going to just influence the whole thing. And when I tried to come to, I wouldn't say I was trying to come to faith. When I tried to work out my internal life and kind of build the city of my my internal thoughts, my thought life, feeling like I had been released from Christianity, it was this kind of giddy feeling. You can run around and set up whatever you want, and you get in. You find different thinkers and different religions and things, and you start thinking, oh, okay, I can grab, some of this, and I can grab some of that, and of course, like, you can, because there's wisdom in everything, and so you are finding wisdom, but then you start to realize, or it's not a realization at first. This is not, for me, it wasn't a realization. It was like you'd be delving into something, and then you'd just sort of like start chugging in a bad way, and I'd be like, why isn't this why isn't this satisfying me anymore? And I think a lot of people take that, people who maybe are committed to the idea of a return at some point to, deep down, they're planning to just return in some way to where they've been in the past, but this is just a momentary kind of going out. The temptation is to believe that, okay, I'm not satisfied by this anymore because really I know the truth, and I can go back to the truth, and this will have served to cement that original truth for me. And I guess for me, for various reasons, I started to think that instead of just realizing, okay, I've looked into Buddhism now, and I'm not, and I've kind of fizzled out, I've lost interest in it. That must mean, I've exhausted Buddhism. It's not a good thing. And really I should just return to Christianity. But I kind of want to propose another potential way to interpret that, which is that whenever you start looking at anything that contains some kind of wisdom and some kind of feeling of something that's universal to it, your intellect, what you're experiencing is an intellectual process where you are hearing the whispers, the still small voice of wisdom, actual wisdom in those things speaking to you. And this goes back to that first video again, where I'm willing to say that wisdom is its own being, or at least it's not me. At least it's something real that's outside of me. Because you're hearing wisdom, and yet you're continuing on in the intellectual mode. In other words, you're continuing to kind of almost mathematically learn this new thing. And really, if you're like me and you came from the Christian tradition, it was a real combination of things. Yes, you had learned chapter and verse, you'd memorized, but then you'd also had your moments of kind of submission to something greater. You'd had your moments of emotion, great emotional experiences, which I wouldn't discount those at all. And you've had these spiritual experiences kind of in spite of yourself. And when you get into something else, and you're just in the early stages of it, or even middle stages of it, if you're attacking it intellectually only, you'll lose it. And I think it's because of a very deep intuition that we have that at a certain point we need to take the hand of something else. We need to submit to something else. We need to take on practices, and we need to get embodied. We need to get our emotions involved. We need to get community involved. And that's a big one, because community is not an intellectual thing. Community is more like a story than it is like an intellectual pursuit, because each person adds a level of complication and strangeness, and nobody's totally coherent within themselves, and then you put all those people in a group together. And that's one of the things that's so great about community, is it's very unsettling. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the intellect is a wonderful faculty. I'm not saying that the intellect is bad, but at a certain point, when you're making this, for me, very slow glacial theological turn, you realize that some of these spirits and some of these powers are wanting to get involved, or asking to be involved. I mean, the big one, I guess, would be love, which isn't a super controversial one to talk about. Love and wisdom. And I think if we're honest with ourselves, when the intellect starts to take on love as part of its thinking, it's not just the intellect anymore. And it's not just you anymore. Love is such a connected thing that when love enters your thinking, all of a sudden you can't write your name on that anymore. You can't say this is mine and I own it. You can't be the hero. You can't take the credit entirely, which I think is unsettling, especially for someone like me who felt like I was moving into faith like through an intellectual lens, to kind of get down the road a bit and realize that what I thought was my greatest power needs to start to take a back seat. And I'm grateful for the intellect and the intellectual experience, but then you also see powerful people who are not intellectual. So this is kind of this is true of more than just theological thinking. This is mystical, magical thinking as well. And if you ever meet anybody who's really serious about the occult, or really serious about magic of some kind, they are very serious about intention, and they're very serious about love. They're very serious about kindness and care, because they have the advantage of saying and acknowledging that they are working with powers beyond themselves, and they're working in those spheres. And so there's a real seriousness about it, which is why, I think occult and magic people are not quick to trot out the stories of their experiences, whatever they happen to be. And I think that's maybe something that we could learn from those communities, is that we need to be serious about the subjective quality of our religious and spiritual experiences. We need to stop with this objective. Objectivity is great, but we need to stop wanting to frame our faith as objective and God as objective, because we will experience God only in the subjective realm. I shouldn't say only. I don't know. But that is the most common experience. And I think that when we get serious about love being more important than the intellect, then I think you've turned a corner. Because you're not saying that love is contained entirely within yourself. You're not framing love as just a mental aberration or some kind of affection or something like that. You are admitting that love is a collaborator, and that what happens when your intellectual life comes to real transformational fruition, that there's an inbreaking of something universal that's not you, and it's beautiful and it's powerful, but it needs to be treated with care, and so I think that's what I have to say today. As always, please comment. Like I say, I really want some interaction. I'm assuming somebody soon is going to correct me on my use of the word theological, because I didn't really look it up, and I might be wrong. So even if that's what you want to do, you want to say this is not a theological channel, please do. Let's talk. And yeah, like and subscribe. No, I probably won't say that at the end of any videos, because that sounds really stupid. Okay, thanks everybody.